On this video, I am going to finish the book of Colossians that I've been working through, doing a brief, like an overview, uh, reading the text and making comment. And this will be in English, but I've done some in Greek uh, with grammar, but this will be finishing up in English. We now are at Colossians 3:18, where we come to look at the whole area of family relations, having seen in the book of Colossians some great truths that Paul has taught concerning the supremacy of Christ, his labor in the church, and then freedom from all of the regulations and wrong teaching, more of a philosophical, apologetic section in 2, and then how we are to live as believers in 3 through 4, which will be concluded with final greetings. So we pick it up in verse 18, where he's talking about family relations. Wives, be in subjection to your husband as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be embittered against them. Children, be obedient to your parents in all things, for this is well pleasing to the Lord. And fathers, do not exasperate your children so that they will lose heart. Notice Paul here is looking at family relations, at wives, to be in submission to their own husbands, as is fitting in the Lord, but then husbands are to love their wives and to love them as Christ loved the church. This is found in in the book of Ephesians as well. Furthermore, uh, there shouldn't be any bitterness on the part of husbands toward their wives. There should be a love, a mutuality of love. Children are to be obedient to their parents in all things, for this is well pleasing. One of the sad things is when children are not obedient at all or have little respect for parents. And parents then should love their children. Fathers, do not exasperate your children so that they will not lose heart. Sometimes a father can be very hurtful to children, to their children, and exasperate them, and they lose heart. Children are to obey, but fathers are to love and to nurture. Slaves, in all things obey those who are your masters on earth, not with external service as those who merely please men, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord rather than for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve, for he who does wrong will receive the consequences of the wrong which he has done, and that without partiality. Masters, love or grant to your slaves justice and fairness, knowing that you too have a master in heaven. And I had quoted uh, a text before by Haley that I thought was very good. This is on page 210 of the Haley Bible Handbook, where he wrote half of the population of Rome and a large percentage of the population of the empire were slaves. Many of the Christians were slaves. It was not a racial issue, it was basically half of the population at that time, or a large number. They are told that they are to be faithful to their ultimate master, that is Christ. It is remarkable teaching in the performance of our earthly tasks, however menial, we are always under the watchful eye of Christ, and for his approval or disapproval, as we may deserve. And he made an application in this way, but the same applies to masters in their treatment of slaves. They're going to have to answer to the Lord someday. So today, this is the application that was made by Haley. Today, we would apply this primarily to the attitude of employees toward their employers and of employers toward employees. And I think that's an interesting and true application today. It needs to be applied in the employment setting. And often, those that are up on the corporate ladder can be very hurtful to those that are employees. And likewise, employees may not really do the job that they should do. And he brings it now to the Lord. Employee and employer have to answer before the Lord someday. Then he goes on, so be fair. In other words, he's saying to the employer, to the employee, do work not just for your employer, but for the Lord. Devote yourselves to prayer, keeping alert in it with an attitude of thanksgiving. Praying at the same time for us as well, that God will open to us a door for the word, so that we may speak forth the mystery of Christ, for which I have been imprisoned, that I may make it clear in the way I ought to speak. Notice Paul wants prayer. And he wants prayer that God would open a door of opportunity to be able to speak the word and about the mystery of Christ, which is Jew and Gentile, becoming one now. And that was one of the reasons why Paul was in prison, because there was opposition of that teaching. So help me to have an open door. And we all need to pray for open doors to be able to share the gospel with others. And then he goes on, conduct yourselves with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of opportunity. Let your speech be always with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person, how we need to watch our speech. And all of us need to work on that as Christians. And our speech should be as salt. It should flavor what we're saying rather than cause the opposite. I know I enjoy curry a lot. And one of my friends says, Gary, you got to put a little salt on it or it won't bring out the taste. And so as I look at this, we need to know how to speak in a way that gives grace. And that's the salt that we are to give, so we can know how to answer each person that we come in contact with the loving, kind answer. As to my affairs, Tychicus, our beloved brother and faithful servant and fellow bondservant of the Lord, will bring you information, for I have sent him to you for this very purpose, that you may know about our circumstances, and that he may encourage your hearts. Tychicus was a faithful, can I say, friend with Paul, and he'll let you know what's been going on with my imprisonment and with what I've been going through, Paul is saying. And with him, Onesimus, our faithful and beloved brother, who is one of your number, that is, these two are going to share with you. They will inform you about the whole situation here, about what I'm going through. And Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, sends you greetings, and also Barnabas's cousin Mark, about whom you received instruction. If he comes to you, welcome him. Notice he's getting into some different people that the people at Colossae are to recognize and welcome, and also Jesus, who is called Justice. These are the only fellow workers for the kingdom of God who are from the circumcision, and they have proved to be an encouragement to me. In other words, they are Jewish believers who have improved to be an encouragement to me. So they're sending you greetings, and they have been a great encouragement to me in my time. Furthermore, Epaphras, who is one of your number, a bondslave of Jesus Christ, sends you his greetings, always laboring on your behalf, earnestly for you in his prayers, that you may stand perfect and fully assured in all the will of God. What a beautiful statement here. Epaphras, who brought news to Paul about the church at Colossae, is a bond slave of Jesus Christ. What greater thing could be said than that? And he's always laboring in prayer for you. Notice prayer can be labor and is labor. And also, he's praying that you'll stand perfect in the Lord, meaning complete or mature, and be fully assured in all the will of God. Furthermore, I testify for him that he has a deep concern for you and for those who are in Laodicea and Hierapolis. In other words, he has a concern for all of you, Epaphras, and he's always praying. And then Luke, the beloved physician, sends you his greeting, and also Demas. Notice Luke, who was a physician, sends greetings, and Demas, and greet the brethren who are in Laodicea, and also Nympha and the church that is in her house. Notice you had a lot of possibly house churches back then. And so greet the brethren in Laodicea and also Nympha, the church that's in her particular house. When this letter is read among you, have it also read in the church of the Laodiceans. And you, for your part, read my letter that is coming from Laodicea. In other words, these letters were read publicly. And so you read my letter and see that this letter is read in the church of Laodicea as well, and read my letter that Paul is evidently has sent to Laodicea. So say to Archippus, I like this verse, say to him, take heed to the ministry which you have received in the Lord, that you may fulfill it. What a beautiful statement here. We all have a race to run individually. We all have a ministry to fulfill. And God has trained us, each one of us, for a particular ministry. So, Archippus, take heed to the ministry which you have received from the Lord, that you may be sure to fulfill it. That speaks to all of us, doesn't it? We all have a ministry that we are to fulfill. Whatever that is, it will be different from each other, but we're to fulfill it. And so I, Paul, write this greeting with my own hand. Remember my imprisonment, and grace be with you. In other words, remember my bonds. Please keep me in prayer. And I'm writing this final greeting. You might have been dictating the rest with my own hand. So please remember me in your prayers, and grace, may it be with you, is Paul's final greeting here.